Welcome back, everyone, to Cheddar Politics. I'm Baker Machado. With Vice President Joe Biden all but securing the Democratic nomination for president, the big question is whether or not he will be able to sway the millions of Bernie Sanders supporters his way. And if not, how many will he get? Joining us now to discuss, our good friend Emma Vigeland, reporter over at the Young Turks. Emma, always a pleasure to see you. Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez both say at the end of the day they plan to support the nominee. They haven't come out endorsing Joe Biden. But do you think at the end of the day, their voters will come to Joe Biden?
Well, we're in unprecedented times. It's underreported how in 2016 more Bernie Sanders supporters actually voted for Hillary Clinton in the general election than in 2008, when a smaller proportion of Hillary Clinton supporters voted for Obama. A lot of them went over to John McCain. So I think the Bernie or bust thing is a bit overblown. But I will say, when you keep kicking the base of the party in the teeth, when you keep basically saying, we don't need you. That's what the Democratic establishment has done. They've decided that calculated that they think that they can win against Donald Trump without the base of the party. When they do that, they should not be shocked when a lot of people don't turn out. So I'm pretty pessimistic, to be honest with you, about what the results are going to be come November.
Yeah, Emma, the day that Bernie Sanders dropped out, Joe Biden wrote this big Medium post essentially saying to Bernie Sanders supporters, I'm going to earn your vote. I'm going to show you that I deserve your vote. And Joe Biden has tried a couple of times to make some concessions to progressive voters. He's moved to the left on quite a few issues, including a tuition-free college. Is there something in particular that progressive voters are waiting to hear from Joe Biden?
I just frankly don't think progressive voters believe him. We saw these overtures in 2016 with Hillary Clinton, albeit a bit more begrudgingly from her. Joe Biden is trying to be a little bit more forward-thinking in this regard and is bringing up some topics that, yeah, he thinks are going to appeal to Bernie Sanders supporters. But there is so much agita and angst about what happened in 2016 that I just don't know if you're going to get supporters and shame them into voting for Joe Biden. I think the bigger issue beyond progressive leftist activists, who some may turn out and not come out for Joe Biden, but I think a good amount will, are low-income, non-traditional voters, people who are typically disaffected by the political system. You know, we always hear all this talk about how non-voters are privileged and the outcome isn't going to affect them, when it's actually the inverse. Non-voters are traditionally disproportionately poor, non-white, and lower income. I said poor, but yeah. So it's kind of the inverse of that. They feel like Democrats and Republicans aren't going to represent their interests. And what you need to turn those voters out, I think, is a candidate like Bernie Sanders. That ship has sailed, but someone who speaks directly to working class and poorer people. And now Joe Biden is kind of the same thing as Hillary Clinton, except that he's more likable in some instances, but perhaps undergoing cognitive decline before our very eyes. And that's the number one thing voters bring up to me. And the fact that the Democratic establishment continues to gaslight the entire country about it is just incredibly disheartening.
Now, obviously, there have been some changes since 2016. The role of superdelegates obviously has changed since Hillary Clinton's days. Moderate Democrats, Emma, are worried, obviously, that the going after Joe Biden then turns a lot of voters off of Joe Biden. They then go and vote for Donald Trump, similar to what we saw in 2016 with Hillary Clinton. But do progressive voters view this election differently than they did in 2016? Because I think in 2016, maybe there was an expectation Hillary Clinton was going to beat Donald Trump. Now, 2020, it could be a toss-up.
Yeah, I think for me, I see the dynamics as similar to 2004, where you have a president who's entirely incompetent and contributed to a crisis. In that time, that was the Iraq War. Bush obviously got us into that illegal war. And now Donald Trump, who has just worsened the coronavirus crisis by his own incompetence. So, but there's this weird effect of rallying behind the leader. So in many ways, we've seen Trump's approval ratings go up. We've seen his approval ratings for how he's handled the coronavirus go up significantly, which is shocking. And then you have an uninspiring centrist who is running against that Republican candidate. And in this instance, John Kerry, obviously in 2004, he was fine cognitively. In this instance, I swear to you, the number one thing that people who are just traditionally apolitical are bringing up to me is that Biden is not speaking full sentences, that they can't understand him. This is a significant concern. So it only heightens this kind of wartime president, crisis time president dynamics because they look on the other side and Joe Biden they don't feel is cognitively up to the task. So this only helps Trump in that regard. But this at the same time, look, Trump is more unpopular traditionally than Bush, so that kind of counteracts it. But those are some of the dynamics that I'm witnessing.
Yeah, the 2004 election, definitely a good case study in all of this. Emma Vigeland from the Young Turks, always a pleasure, Emma. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, Baker.
All right, with that in mind, and keeping with the tradition, we're going to take a very quick moment to remember the campaign of Senator Bernie Sanders that was it. Yeah, indeed. The Vermont senator came in hot in February 2019 with his second bid for the Oval Office. Throughout the course of his campaign, he put a spotlight on a lot of social issues like the working class family and free college. He even pushed for higher minimum wage and even universal health care. He was like that crazy uncle at dinner you always wish you had. He used his outdoor voice pretty much all the time, never caring what the political establishment ever thought about him. And although he didn't win the electability vote, there is a strong argument to be made that Bernie Sanders did win the ideological debate. He helped America, the Democratic Party, and especially the younger generation to think in a completely different and new way. So, of course, we here at Cheddar Politics wish Senator Bernie Sanders all the best of luck on his future endeavors as we remember Bernie Sanders' 2020 campaign that wasn't.